Good morning, friends. Today we move on to the seventh commandment from Exodus 20, verse 14, which states, "You shall not commit adultery." And this prohibition is similar to yesterday's command against murder in that our Lord makes it clear that this issue is fundamentally one of the heart. The point isn't that if you don't go through with the physical act, then you're golden. As Jesus explains in Matthew 5:27 and 28, he says, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Once again, the sin issue isn't simply about external actions, but about internal thoughts and intentions. Now, it absolutely is worse to go through with the physical act, so please don't conclude that if you're going to think it, you might as well do it. No, indeed. But at the same time, we also shouldn't conclude, well, I'll never actually do it, but it sure is fun to fantasize about it. Because that attitude simply means that you're indulging in the sin within your own heart. And that is still sinful. It has its consequences. It will affect who you are and how you think, and yes, eventually how you act. Well-respected pastors who do love the Lord have still fallen into sexual sin because it started as a mere thought that they didn't think would ever turn into action, so that they let it remain in their hearts until it grew to be something they couldn't contain inside. And why is this important? Aren't we all the time told that we're too concerned about matters of sex as Christians? Well, this matter is important for two reasons, and we ought to be concerned about both. The first reason is on the level that most people in the world address it, on the physical level. And this is where so many people will say, what's the big deal? It's just sex. It's just a bit of fun. And honestly, here I must be a bit more candid than I'm comfortable being. But when it comes to modesty, the response against modesty, how we dress, the pictures that are taken, etc., is something like, they're just breasts. Or it's just a butt. It's just other more explicit things. But here's the deal. When we say it's just sex, it's just a bit of fun, it's just a body, whenever we say that, we're devaluing all those things. We use the word just like that or with that attitude, also in the same way where we say, well, that's just last night's pizza, go ahead, throw it out. It's a perspective that dismisses and devalues the thing that's in view. And through this attitude, our society is teaching its people, particularly its young people, who are made up of body parts and also desires that naturally lead to matters of sexuality, that the parts that make up their physical existence aren't really valuable, that the desires they have also aren't really that valuable, that they can be indulged in as easily as indulging a sweet tooth, because they are no more valuable and have no greater significance. But friends, what value is there in life when the parts that make up that life aren't valuable and the desires of that life aren't valuable? We are not so subtly teaching our children that they are not valuable, that they are not of worth. And then we wonder why teenage suicide rates are alarmingly high. My heart breaks because I've had people tell me that what I believe concerning God and the Bible, that's the true oppressor, that what I believe is keeping people from their true potential and self-actualization and bolstering their self-esteem. But friends, I have never been more convinced of my own worth and the worth of humanity as a whole than I am now that I have come to understand more and more my relationship with a sovereign Lord who loves me, who created me, and who has a purpose for me and for each one of us. Because without that God who loves and who creates and who makes purpose, well, without that God, there is no value. There is no purpose. Friends, and especially if you are a teenager or even younger listening to this, let me tell you that you are valuable in the sight of God. You are created in His image, as are those around you. And so, yes, God gives us regulations like do not murder, do not commit adultery, to protect the value that He has instilled within us and to even increase our understanding of that value. And secondly, closely related to that God-created value, we see the second reason we ought not commit adultery, because adultery is the opposite of faithfulness. And we serve a 100% faithful God. And so he calls his greatest act of creation, having supreme value, humanity itself, to be faithful. If you make a promise, faithfully fulfill it. If you make a commitment, faithfully keep it. And God created the sacred covenant of marriage as an earthly object lesson wherein the covenant roles of husband and wife are supposed to model the faithfulness with which God regards his people. And so, if we are married and we are unfaithful to our spouse, or if we are not married but we assist a married person in unfaithfulness, or we are not married and we have such lustful intentions toward another person who isn't married, thereby affecting both parties' future covenant unions, then we take the thing that is supposed to model the purity of God's complete faithfulness, and we bring shame on it through our infidelity. Now, friends, I know this can be an awkward subject, but we must not shy away from it, because generation upon generation is growing up having no actual experience or notion of what true faithfulness looks like, nor do they have any understanding of their own value. And yes, that includes the value of their bodies and their actions. So today, let us consider these things and seek God's wisdom in how to teach our children, as well as how to explain to a world without values that they are in fact valuable. Have a good and godly day, and if the Lord wills, I'll see you tomorrow.